Thank you so much. Great to see so many people here in the room. My name is Aideen Riley and I am the NCP for the Innovation Fund here in Ireland. So the Irish National Contact Point, so we're in the Department for Climate, Energy and the Environment. And as of yesterday, we've just moved section. So we are now part of the new EU international and EU funding section. So you know who to annoy regarding anything Fundrise. Yeah. So navigating EU funding calls, it can be complex, but that's where we come in. So we provide guidance on eligibility criteria. We can clarify documentation requirements. If we get it in time, we can do a quick review of applications. We also know that all the technical advisors in the department, again, if given to us enough time, they may also be able to review before you put them in. We can organise letters of support and signpost you to those technical advisors also. In addition to supporting applicants, we represent Irish priorities at the European level and we engage with likes of SNEA, DG Klima and EIB, and I'm so glad that they're here in person today to talk to you. Our participation in expert groups gives us a platform to influence the design of calls, ensuring they reflect the unique needs and capabilities of Irish potential projects. And by aligning Ireland's strengths with EU opportunities, we aim to position our projects as competitive and impactful. The fund is structured to support projects of varying scales. Large-scale projects are defined by a total capture expenditure above 100 million. Medium-scale projects are then between 20 up to 100. And finally, the small-scale projects we range from 2.5 up to 20 million. These projects, while small in scale, they play a crucial role in fostering innovation and sustainability in a more accessible and agile manner. The European Commission has announced the opening of 3 new funding opportunities under the Innovation Fund with a total budget of 5.2 billion. The 2025 Net Zero Technological Call with a budget of 2.9 and the third auction for hydrogen production with 1.3 billion. And I'm so happy to announce this year the first ever decarbonisation of industrial process heat with a 1 billion budget, and this new auction will, our colleagues today from SNEA will go into better detail on that. But just to give you an overview, the 2025 heat auction under the EU Innovation Fund aims to cost-effectively reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the industrial sector by supporting the market uptake of electrified and direct renewable industrial process heat solutions. The auction is designed to accelerate the decarbonisation of industrial process heat, a major source of industrial energy demand and CO2 emissions in Europe. This auction is a based approach, and it differs from the more traditional grants, with funding allocated based on competitive bidding. The auction is split into 3 baskets, which are set out here, and more details on these and the funding calls will be covered later. As I mentioned, we also have representatives from the European Investment Bank here, and they deliver the project development assistance, which serves as a pipeline building instrument for the Innovation Fund by helping innovative but immature projects bridge the gap between concept and full proposal. The selection projects is based by the EIB and approved by the Commission. The selection takes into account the degree of innovation compared to the state of the art, the potential to significantly reduce climate impacts and to support widespread application and project maturity. The EIB prioritised projects for which the PDA can lead to a substantial improvement in the maturity and, excuse me, in relation to the portfolio funded projects, as well as small scale projects and projects amongst the most immature. So I just again thank you for coming, and before I hand over to our colleagues from SNEA, just a quick bio on them. We have Maria. So Maria has worked at SNEA as Deputy Head Unit of the Innovation Fund since February 2023. Previously, she worked in different departments of the European Commission, namely DG Klima, in DG Research and Development and DG Transport. Maria has worked as well in the private sector, namely in international business development for engineering, intelligent transport systems and transport infrastructure companies with focus in North and Latin America and North of Africa. She holds a Master of Economics of the Universidad Complutense of Madrid. You'll have to work that out better later. We also have Alexandra. He's been a member of Synea's financial engineering team since December 2020, working on Innovation Fund since the first call. Prior to that, he worked at ING Bank since 2012, first in capital structuring and advisory, and as from 2016 in the structured finance team, both in Brussels and Singapore. And finally, Lucy. Lucy joined DG Klima and the Innovation Fund team in January 2025. Prior to that, she worked in other departments of the European Commission, DG GROW, and the executive agency HADA. Before joining the European Commission, Lucy worked in the private sector, focusing on impact investment and sustainable finance. You'll see on your tables as well, there's a little Slido QR code. You can use your mobile to scan that and put in any questions. There'll be a Q&A after everyone has presented, and we'll go through those. We may not get all questions answered today, but if you get your question in, at least we can get back to you on an email with the answer. So I'd really encourage everyone to engage as much as they can. You'll very rarely get this level of expertise in one room, so make the most of it. And I'd just like to invite Maria, you first up. Oh, Lucy, I'll invite Lucy to the stage. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. So we are very happy to be here and to be able to present you the Innovation Fund and the upcoming calls that were already mentioned. So first and foremost, maybe a disclaimer, just to remind you that all the discussion and everything that will be presented to you today, whatever we present and discuss today, like what matters is the official call text and the related question and answers that are published on the website and the Funding and Tenders portal. And now the agenda. So I will first start with a general overview of the Innovation Fund and its previous calls. And then my colleague, Alexandra and Maria, will present you the IF25 Net Zero Technology Call, the lesson learned from the previous calls, IF24, and the IF25 HIT auction, because we understood that this were the priority to focus on. And we will conclude also with the do no significant harm, the NSH principle, because this is a novelty for this year's IF25 call. So first, what is the Innovation Fund? So just to remind you that the Innovation Fund was introduced in 2020, and we can expect 40 billion available, used from the EU emission trading system, the EU ETS carbon market. So the Innovation Fund used this revenue to then invest and provide grant awarded through regular calls and auctions. And the Innovation Fund articulates two main goals: decarbonization to avoid GHG emission, and competitiveness. And yeah, we support several sectors that you can see here: energy-intensive industry, renewable energy, energy storage, carbon capture, use and storage, and net zero mobility and building, which is a newly introduced sector from last year. I think I should mention here that the Innovation Fund, as it's called, focus on innovation. So this is a very important criteria, but you should remind that the Innovation Fund aims at supporting technology that are already quite mature. And yeah, the objective of the fund is then to help scaling up and commercialization deployment of these net zero technologies. Here is to show you a bit the evolution of the fund from 2020 to 2025 this year, and just to show you that we introduced different topics through the net zero call and also this new instrument auctions in order to adapt to an evolving industrial and political context. And this is, I think, one of the strengths of this instrument is that it's quite agile, introducing, like, for instance, this year, like, heat auction to address, like, industrial priorities at European level. And there is always, like, a bit of this trade-off between adapting to this industrial political context and still keeping a bit of stability, so also to allow for resubmission. So far, the innovation call is 11 calls successfully closed, over 2,000 proposals received, and over 15.8 billion awarded so far. And here you can have a more focused picture of the Innovation Fund portfolio. So we have like 276 projects going on, among them 79 under grant agreements preparation from the previous Innovation Fund 2024 calls. As I mentioned already, 15.8 billion allocated, 1,160 megaton CO2 equivalent to be avoided, and a portfolio among 28 countries. And yeah, we are quite happy that Romania, during the last call, joined the portfolio. Here you can see a distribution, geographical distribution of a portfolio. So projects per country and budget. So you can see that yeah, there is not necessarily a causality between the number of projects and the budget allocated. So far only one project from the Innovation Fund in Ireland, so room for potential. Here you can see, yeah, the innovation portfolio by sector. So the main sector is energy intensive industry, as it represents 60% in terms of number of projects, followed by clean tech manufacturing, 20%. And then we have renewable energy storage and net zero mobility and buildings. So as I mentioned, so far only one Innovation Fund project in Ireland, the SAOIRS project, which is a project trying to test and validate like the wave energy converter, going through some permitting issue. And yeah, as I said, like a lot of potential for Ireland. And this is the performance through Innovation Fund calls for Ireland, so a 6% success rate. So far, we've, important to mention, 3 projects with STEP still. So STEP for Strategic Technology Europe platform. So this is under DG Budge, and it's quite important for us because there are like a lot of projects that are very promising, that are not successful in securing a budget, but are successful in meeting all the criteria for the Innovation Fund. And so they received like this STEP still and appear if they agree on the STEP still platform, so that they can also get more visibility and try to diversify their source of fundings. And yeah, here you can see, so 34 projects submitted, 26 admissible and eligible, and only 7 above all threshold criteria, 2 invited for GAP so far, and 1 ongoing. So as already mentioned, there are like 3 calls for the Innovation Fund this year. The hydrogen auction with 1.3 billion, the industrial heat auction with 1 billion, and the net zero technology call with 2.9 billion. So here is the closing date, like so 19th of February for the hydrogen and heat auctions, and 23 of April for the IF25 NZT. And I should remind you as well that we have a lot of material and information available on the Commission website. We had info days in December, so I can only encourage you to refer to these info days. They're available online because, yeah, there is much more information that what we can cover today available there. And yeah, you can find all this information online. And with no further ado, I will let Maria.
Thank you, Lucy. And well, good, I think still good morning to everyone. Here is not noon yet. It is really a pleasure to be here because I was here together with a colleague of mine last year. So it's really good to see that, okay, I mean, the community keeps on developing and growing, and from what we have heard, there are nice projects in the pipeline. So we really hope that there will be new projects from Ireland coming through the calls this year. Together with Alexandra, we are going to present two of the calls which are open now, the NCT Net Zero Technology call, which is what we call the general call in kind of our slang, and the heat auction, because we understand these are the priorities for Ireland. I'm building up on what Lucy was saying. I mean, we don't have the time to present in detail everything on each of the calls. So we are going to kind of give an overview of what is a call about, what are the different topics when within these calls, and what are the elements that one has to consider when preparing a proposal. But I mean, there is a wealth of material from the info days that we had in the month of December before the Christmas break. Tutorials, recordings, and many other things which can help you at the moment of preparing a presentation, and we won't have the time to go through them today. So in a nutshell, what is this general call about? We have 2.9 billion, which are for this call. And on top of that, there is a PDA, the Project Development Assistance. We will listen from the colleagues from the European Investment Bank afterwards. And then there is also the STEP seal. We have 5 topics, and I will present them to you soon within this call. The award criteria have not changed for those who are familiar with them compared to last year. There have been some small changes within them, if you want, but I mean, they keep on being degree of innovation, GHG emission avoidance potential, project maturity, which has the 3, the technical, the financial, and the operational, replicability with some changes inside, cost efficiency, and then some changes in the bonus points. We have now net carbon removals. We have a new bonus point on SMEs, so projects which are coordinated or implemented by SMEs may get this bonus point, and then projects in the maritime sector. We didn't change the rules. We can, through lump sums, contribute up to 60% of relevant cost. Up to 40% of the grant we can disburse it at the moment of financial close, and the remaining is after financial close during what is the period under entering into operation, and at least 10% it is kept once the project is into operation, because it is paid in front of the compliance with the reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions, which was foreseen in the application. So the topics that we have what we call general decarbonization topics. So we have 3 topics on which the classification depends on the size of the projects. We have large, medium, and small scale projects. And then we have 2 topics which are different. One is clean tech manufacturing for components and pilot projects. So on the general decarbonization ones, as I said, depending on the size of the project, we have a small project up to between 2.5 and 20 million capex. mediums go from 20 to 100, and above 100, it is a larger scale. And obviously, the topic which is identified or earmark budget, the budget per topic, it is larger for the larger scale projects, and is where the competition is stronger, is more fierce. By the way, I would like to highlight here that the smaller scale project, it is a window of opportunity for projects which have this size, because the competition is much lower. And honestly speaking, sometimes we struggle to find projects which are good enough to cover the money which is earmarked. So if you have an idea for a project which is small scale, think that there is a good chance in that window. The sectors which are covered for these three topics are, in fact, all the sectors which are within the EU ETS directive identified in Annex 1 and in Annex 3, including carbon capture use and development of substitute products. We also cover CCS, carbon capture and storage, renewable energy and energy storage technologies, and then maritime and aviation. The other two topics, clean tech manufacturing for components and pilots, they come as an answer of what Lucy was explaining before, changes in policy in the last year, orientations and priorities, and then the fund trying to launch calls which address these needs, as well as with the auctions that we will listen to afterwards. So for both the clean tech manufacturing and the pilot projects, the capital expenditure has to be at least 2.5 million euro. And there is quite a substantial budget for the clean tech manufacturing for components, because again, there is an important market of projects which are looking for it. So for this clean tech, it is manufacturing of components or also the final equipment. So they can be, for instance, component for wind turbines, solar panels, heat pumps, electrolyzers, but they can also be the manufacturing of the elements as such, and cover sectors of renewable energy, and as I said, electrolyzer, fuel cells, energy storage solutions, heat pumps. And for the pilots, there are projects on which we are aiming at validating, testing, optimizing highly innovative with strong decarbonization solutions in all the sectors which are covered by the ETS and are mentioned up in the slide. Award criteria. We use these 5 award criteria. We always evaluate using external experts. So your projects will be evaluated by a set of experts, on which we have experts with a technical background, expert with a financial background, and expert with a GHG expertise. And they analyze these 5 criteria. Degree of innovation, which is the innovation has to be beyond the state of the art, normally at European level. But in the case of smaller scale projects, the project may decide, and they have to state it, if they compare to the European level or to the national level, because we understand these projects are ambitious in themselves, but I mean, for them it can be very ambitious to compare just being smaller with the national level. An important thing to consider, to bear in mind when preparing a proposal, is that for the degree of innovation, a comparison has also to be done or to be expressed in the part of the application with ongoing IF projects. All the information on the ongoing Innovation Fund projects is available online, so you would also have to refer what you are doing, compare if there is other projects already supported in that area, or if there are none, saying that this is the first one and there are none. GHG emission avoidance potential, where you have to look at the absolute, the relative emission, and also the quality of calculation and minimum requirements. All this is really well explained online. Project maturity, I mentioned the 3 elements: technical, financial, and operational. Replicability, here for those who eventually have already prepared a proposal or are familiar with last year's call, we have rearranged a bit inside the elements. So now there are 2 if you want, two areas which are covered. One is efficiency gains and multiple environmental impacts, including DNSH, which Lucy will explain at the end of the morning session. And then the second area is the contribution to European industrial leadership and competitiveness. And this is, as you know, becoming a more highly relevant issue. So please pay attention, read carefully the call text regarding this, and think about it and develop it when preparing your application. And then we have cost efficiency, in which we have cost efficiency ratio, which there is a different formula for the pilot project. So keep this in mind as well. For the other ones, it is the same for them. And then there is also as well the quality of the relevant cost calculation and minimum requirements. Bonus points, as I mentioned, there have been some changes, and two of the bonus points that existed have disappeared, and we have a bonus point for projects coordinated and implemented by small and medium-sized enterprises. So I have already mentioned some of the changes compared to last year, but this slide, if you intend to prepare a proposal, we recommend that you really get familiar with it, because it really has the compilation, if you want, of what has changed compared to last year. So the DNSH, some changes in the availability criteria, because you may remember that last year we have a call for manufacturing of cells for batteries for electric vehicles. There is no call like that this year. So then these projects are eligible now under this NCT call, which were not last year. And then we make explicit that activities aim at electricity generation from non-recycled fossil fuels and fossil fuel production based on non-recycled fossil feedstocks are not eligible. I mean, we want to decarbonize, so it makes sense that these activities are not eligible. When you have a project which is about producing hydrogen, you need to bear in mind that production of RFNBO at the substantial size of the project is not eligible under the NCT for large or for medium scale projects, because we consider this is covered in the auction on hydrogen, while it is eligible if we speak about pilot and small scale project topics. Bonus points I've already mentioned, and then we have done some refinements and clarifications on the text. So as for instance, what I mentioned about the replicability award, so get familiar with that. So bit more additional information, though I won't go in depth or thoroughly through each of the slides. General decarbonization topics, as what I aim is to accelerate this decarbonization of the sectors which are covered by the ETS directive. And second element, and this links to the comment that I made on the replicability, we want to promote sustainable development and technological leadership within Europe. So we are putting more and more emphasis on this, the industrial leadership of Europe and the sovereignty and this type of elements. And I've already mentioned the activities that can be funded. It was in the first table that we had. I think from here, what is important maybe that I haven't mentioned is maybe to highlight that for maritime and aviation, the infrastructure, the innovative infrastructure for the maritime sector, like the transshipment, container transshipment ports, can also be eligible. And when we speak about retrofitting of ships or planes, to be eligible for funding, the manufacturing or the installation of this element has to be done in the European and in the EU member states or European Economic Area. Because as you know, I mean, the Innovation Fund covers the member states of the European Union plus Liechtenstein, Iceland, and Norway. And the projects have to take place in these countries. So they might take place or they might be promoted by a company, an organization which based outside, but I mean, as a company is registered somewhere else, but the project has to take place in this country. So using the same logic, if we are retrofitting a vessel, for instance, the physically this installation of these new elements, or if we are building it, this has to happen in Europe and not elsewhere to be a component which is eligible. The projects have to be operating once they enter into operation at least 5 years for the majority of them, and this is 3 years for the small scale projects. So is the exception. It is important to take into consideration the minimum thresholds that has to be fulfilled. So the relative GHG emission avoidance has to be at least 50% compared to what is your point of comparison, and the cost efficiency ratio has to be maximum 200 euro per ton for the CO2 equivalent. If we move to the clean manufacturing topic, I've already mentioned that the objective is to foster innovative manufacturing in clean tech for renewable, for energy storage, for hydrogen production, so all these elements, and building the capacity and the leadership of the European industry. Activities fund, I've already mentioned them. Important to consider, as I already said, that it is components, subcomponents, but it can be also the final equipment of these elements. And yeah, obviously recycling or reusing critical material, it is encouraged, and you should put it forward in your proposal if it is something that you are doing. And the components that are produced through these projects can be sold then in the member states, in the EU market, or elsewhere, but they are produced here. I've already mentioned that the EV battery cells are covered this year, and yeah, I think here nothing more important to consider that. Some projects, if they are more ambitious, if the financial close is within 2 years instead of the 4 years, which is the general rule, and the entry into operation within 4 years, they may get in the moment of the evaluation a higher score. So obviously this has to be something that convinces the evaluators that what you are presenting is solid. And the minimum thresholds to be fulfilled are the same as those that I mentioned for the general decarbonization topics. And if we move to the pilots, here is highly innovative, disruptive, breakthrough in technologies for projects which aim at high decarbonization. Activities funded as well, already mentioned. I don't want to repeat myself. I prefer to leave the time for other things which are less familiar for everyone. Here, because we speak about pilot projects and is highly innovative and so on, is less important the profitability than the viability of the project. So what you need to demonstrate here, I mean, it can be that a project is not as profitable as one could imagine for any other project in the other windows, but it is viable in this pilot. And the idea is to demonstrate the technology that then later we can scale up or we can bring to commercial production after the pilot phase. Okay, same comment as for the clean tech manufacturing. You may have a higher score under project maturity if the proposal is ambitious and present a financial close within 2 years and entry into operation within 4 years. This may be recognized with a higher score. And the minimum operation here is 3 years after the entry into operation as with the small scale project. And here important is that the thresholds are different. The relative GHG emission avoidance has to be not 50%, but at least minimum 75%. And on the contrary, there is less stringent requirements for cost efficiency. So we speak here about maximum 2,000 euro for a ton de CO2 equivalent. And to consider that the maximum grant for a pilot project is 40 million. And this is important and is one of the elements that we have somehow changed a bit compared to last year, because we want to give on the pilots really the opportunity to those projects which are pilots. And we had the feeling after the evaluation last year that we got several proposals that were not real pilots, though they were being presented under the window of pilots. So it's rearranging to try really to give the opportunity and the pilots to these ambitious projects which are aiming at that. I'm going to have a very quick and not thorough presentation of the requirements. So all this information is available online. You will need to have an application which you have the Form A, the Form B, and the Part C, and everything is explained. And then you have a set of mandatory annexes and supporting documents. In some cases, they're mandatory. In some other cases, what you have is an example, a model on what is a business plan, or what is a feasibility study, and so on. You can decide to use, if you have your own, to use your own, but just when it's something which is not mandatory but is a model, please check that what you cover with your own one is what it is presented in the model, because to avoid that there is a situation in which the evaluator said, but this section was missing. So we don't want you to reinvent the wheel if you have your own one, but just make sure that you really cover the minimum elements which are expressed and presented there. Both Lucia and I have mentioned that there is a lot of information here. These slides have the links to the website, to the tutorials, to the recording on the info days. So you have a lot. And then you have your NCPs, and we have them here, which are to support you, to help you, to guide you on how to structure a proposal, and who are extremely helpful. And then online, you also have frequently asked questions. We try, when we get questions, to make those which they are repetitive, they come many times, to really make a generic one and to make it available to all potential applicants. And then as a last resource, we have an online help desk. And I say as a last resource because obviously the resources that we have, the human resources on to answer these questions, are limited. So we encourage that you really try to find and get familiar with what is online. Obviously, if you have a question that you don't find the answer and no one can help you, submit the question to the help desk. And obviously, this is something which is absolutely bilateral and absolutely confidential between yourselves and the experts at the other side, our colleagues. And when we see that, as I said, something is coming in a recurring basis, we make it generic, and then we prepare kind of a frequently asked question that we add to those which are online. And here I stop and I pass it on to Alexandre.
Yeah, so good morning. Before I start, let me first thank you all for joining and your interest in the innovation funds. And also to say that for the next slides, we decided not to cover every award criteria in detail, because we thought it, with interest of time, it would be better to just present some lessons learned from the results from the last call. But we do have a Q&A afterwards, so if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask, and we'll answer, give our best to answer. So basically here, I'm going to first run into some lessons from the last main call, the Net Zero Technologies call. And afterwards, I would briefly present the heat auction call, which is the new innovation fund call that we launched in December last year. So first, to give you here a snapshot of the number of proposals we received, 359. The first observation that we make is that out of this proposal, there is an assessment of the admissibility and eligibility. These are basically checks, sort of automatic checks that we make to filter the ones that do not respect the main condition of the call. Admissibility, it's mainly related to the documents and whether all the documents are there, submitted, whether they are complete. And eligibility, these are like the main conditions of the call, whether they've been fulfilled. And what we see is that there are quite a number of projects which actually do not meet this criteria, which is quite significant. So therefore, we say that you should really pay attention to the information that you need to provide in order to make sure that you fulfill these conditions. The other main observation that we have is that, yes, there are a number of projects which pass all the award criteria, but however, and unfortunately, cannot be selected because of the funding limitations. And obviously there, what we see is that there are a number of resubmissions. So last year we had, we observed that there were 100 resubmissions. And what we also observe is that quite a number of resubmissions passed and managed to pass all the criteria. So what we see is that over time, projects can resubmit and do better. I think that's one message. And obviously, with the projects that cannot be funded, there are always opportunities to seek funding from the national member states. So that's to give you a bit the picture here. 55% of the proposals submitted pass all award criteria. And I will now run through the different failure rates across the award criteria to give you a better picture. From this slide, you can see the different award criteria and the failure rate. I mean, I do have a few observations here. The first one and one of the key messages is that it's under project maturity. That's really an important aspect to focus on, and especially on financial maturity, which is the area where I focus on. So if you have questions afterwards, please do not hesitate. But that's one observation. So these aspects are really important in your application. The other one is that two caveats with these numbers. One is that some proposals may fail under several criteria. So do not take these numbers, be a bit careful with the figures because you may fail on the technical, financial, and operational maturity altogether. And the second one is that when we evaluate, there is a cascade approach. So we filter across some kind of, in a cascade way. So for example, we first screen the one that are passing degree of innovation, and only those that are passing this criteria will be evaluated on the project maturity. So I know, so these numbers should not be, should be a bit careful about them. But that gives you a bit the picture. And now moving into financial maturity, which appears to be call after call one of the main hurdles. Like these are, we try to identify the main elements why a project proposal are failing under financial maturity. And there are two key elements. One is on the business plan, and the other one is on the financing plan. We see that it's actually the failure rate is a bit even between the two. On the business plan, really the elements that are important first is on the business model, the business concept. Sometimes we see that it's not very clear. I mean, it's for the expert, they do not really understand fully the picture, how the project is going to generate money, basically. So there, this is an aspect that sometimes, I mean, can be worked on and really need to be really carefully looked at. The other one is about the assumptions, the projections on revenues, on operational costs. And it is very important to clearly explain, have a very good narrative on how the breakdown of each element, how they are determined. So that's an aspect to look at for the business plan. And the other one is, okay, you built your assumptions, you basically have your financial projections. You need to provide evidence to support these assumptions in the form of pre-contractual terms. So evaluators are not looking at, fully secured, legally binding, contracts. They want heads of terms, preliminary agreements, MOUs, to really show that you have started to engage with these parties and that these are like the terms that are achievable. And I think, yes, for the business plan, these are really the main points. Sometimes there are inconsistencies, so be careful that you check that the numbers in across the different documents are coherent. But okay, these are the main points we see on the business plan. Moving to the financing plan, I think one aspect that we see, and especially in the last calls, was linked to the resources of the equity providers. So because we are asking as part of the documentation to have the financial statements of the shareholders, and we saw in a few cases, for example, to give a very illustrative example, a balance sheet with 50,000 euro, and then a project that needs to raise 100 million euro. It's if that is the case, you need to come up with a very strong investment case. I mean that you are going to secure this amount of money with having the expression of interest from equity investors or so on. So that's a key element, because put yourself in the shoes of the evaluator. That's something that you really need to kind of convince them. The other one is on the debt side. I mean, we understand that. I mean, at the moment you apply financial close, maybe 4 years later in the future. So that's a very long time, and typically you do not get a term sheet from your banks that much ahead. So what we are looking for is that you start to engage with the different bank institution if you happen to raise debt, and try to identify what kind of terms could work, what kind of terms are bankable for your project, and then to follow the recommendations. So for example, if your structure is really project finance based, often the offtake will be very important. So if the indication you get is that you need a very solid long-term offtake, then if you can provide a pre-contractual agreement of a long-term offtake, that would really help and support your proposal. So that's just to give an idea, because we sometimes see also the debt service cover ratio is very low, or not really in line with the risk, if it's really a project risk type of profile. So that's on the debt. And again, also to come up with very solid evidence from the different equity investors of your project. I mean, sometimes the wording in the document is quite generic. It says, I'm committed to support the project, and compare that to a case where it is stated, I acknowledge that the internal rate of return of this project is low, but nevertheless, I'm committed to give that amount of money, and these are the steps to reach a decision, a final investment decision. All these elements are going to make the case stronger to the expert that you are really committed, that you have equity providers committed to inject the funds. And finally, also the consistency. Again, sometimes numbers do not fully match between the business plan and the financing plan. So yeah, I try to give a very rough overview, but these are kind of elements that we have seen in the last course. Now, yeah, I mentioned the admissibility and eligibility checks. So these are, we believe, things that could be improved quite easily. Often it's linked to incomplete documents, or the documents are not submitted. Some of them are missing. Some activities are not eligible. We see as well, or the country of implementation is not eligible. So again, these are really information that can be worked on. So what is very important is that you make sure that you can fill the that you really fulfill the templates, that you respect the page limits. So maybe interesting to let you know that if you are above the page limit count, that could mean that the last pages are blanked effectively, and so the evaluators will not be able to even look at the information that you have. Make sure that you provide all the requested documents, that information is complete, and that you watch, obviously, the submission deadlines and the consistency. Okay, so these were like the main elements on the lessons learned. I will now move to the heat auction, which we worked on last year. And basically, so that's I will indicate to you the main reason that the heat auction was launched is based on the acknowledgement that today there's only a very small portion of industrial process heat that is electrified. So there is really a need to improve. And what we see is that, most of it is based on fossil fuels energy. And the main reason for that lack of development is linked to a cost gap with the conventional fuel technologies. So there is a need to support these activities. We also have currently projects in industrial heat, which we receive under our main innovation fund call. However, they tend to be underrepresented. So with this auction, we believe that we can kind of address this sector. Another aspect which is interesting is that with Innovation Fund, as you know, we are governed by the ETS regulation. So we typically support the industries within the ETS regulation, whereas here we could cover an enlarged scope because industrial heat is covering additional sectors. Within this heat auction, totally the budget envelope is 1 billion euro. And there are 3 topic windows. Two windows are focused on medium temperature, and one is focused on high temperature. That is above 400 degrees Celsius. For medium is between 100 and 400 degrees Celsius. And then there are different installation capacity sizes. For the medium temperature, the small scale is between 3 and 5 megawatt thermal. And for the larger scale, medium temperature, larger scale, it's above 5 megawatt thermal. And then for the high temperature, it's above 3 megawatts thermal. So these are the conditions for these topics. And there is a specific budget allocated to each of them. As you can see, 150 million euro, 450 million, and 550 million euro. So the idea is really to cover a wide range of industrial heat projects. Now, the way the heat auction is working is the following. So projects are going to submit a bid price. With that, there's going to be an amount of subsidy that will be determined. And basically, what is going to happen is there's going to be a filter of the projects. There are 2 main elements. One is the admissibility and eligibility check, which is a bit similar to the other innovation fund calls. And then you have a light, if you want, a light form assessment of the project maturity that I will cover later on. The project that's basically selected out of this will be ranked, as you can see on the graph, according to the bid price they submitted, the lowest bid, and with the amount of subsidy for each of them until the budget is basically fulfilled. And that's basically for each window, the 3 windows I showed earlier. This will be done for each window. So that's how the project allocation is done. It's based on the bid price, but after a qualification requirement. So here, all the projects left of the red line would be the ones selected. So, and how is what is the nature of the subsidy? Here, the payment will be made after entry into operation. So it's a payment that is done in euro per ton of CO2. And how it is done, it is basically based on the industrial heat after a conversion into ton of CO2. Okay, so that would be measured every 6 months. There will be a conversion, and that will be basically on a fixed premium basis. That will be the subsidy amount. What is the bid price? There are no ceilings. So basically, the projects have the flexibility to bid at the level they want, if you like. But there is one constraint, is that they cannot exceed the maximum grant amount per topic that I showed earlier. Now, in terms of the bid price, you could say, am I going to bid at a very high price? But in that case, it's a competitive process, so you may end up not being selected. On the other hand, you could also say, okay, if I bid at a very low price, in that case, I might have a lower investment rate of return, but you would also have to provide documentation from your equity investors, expression of interest. It might be more difficult to get equity investors on the line if you have a lower return. So therefore, we expect that on balance, the level of bid would be aligned to what you need to be financially viable. So that's a bit the concept and the way the bidding process works. And as I indicated, so the way it will be implemented is that we will measure the amount of heat in megawatt hour, okay? And there will be a conversion into ton of CO2. So it's an automatic conversion, but there is one element of choice. So I go over that. The default is that you will use the ETS heat benchmark. So that's the default. So there is simply a formula. It will convert into the volume in megawatt hour into a ton of CO2. Now, you can also decide, in case you replace a fossil fuel installation, you can decide to use one of the emission factor linked to that fossil energy, which you can see here on the table on the slide. But there is a big condition associated with that. And the condition is that in that case, you must decommission this fossil installation. And there will be, at the moment you submit your application, you will need to provide a plan, a decommissioning plan, and there will be a check 1 year after entry into operation to make sure that it has been decommissioned. Okay, so that's the element of choice. So either the default or one of the emission factor linked to the fossil fuel. Now, in terms of how the auction will be implemented, there are a certain number of obligations that are quite important. The first one is that you need to reach financial close within 2 years after signing the grant agreement. The other one is that you need to reach entry into operation 4 years after signing the grant agreement. So these are the two important obligations. And once you sign the grant agreement, you will need to provide a completion guarantee. And if these obligations are not fulfilled, then the guarantee will be called. So these are like important elements. And as I indicated, the payments will be made on a 6-month basis after entry into operation on the basis of the measured industrial process heat. There is only one light obligation if you have a lot of downtime. If you happen to have only 30% of the expected annual volume for 3 years in a row, then there would be a termination event. But otherwise, it's quite flexible. So you will be paid according to the volume that you achieve, basically. The process is the following. So the auction has opened on the 4th of December and is closing on the 19th of February. And we expect the grant agreement signature by November of this year. A very quick word, and almost at the end, on the admissibility and eligibility process. If you look at the eligibility activities, as I indicated, it's really the technologies linked to electrifying industrial process heat. So we talk about heat pumps, electric boilers, also projects using direct renewable heat, such as solar thermal, geothermal, or hybrid. So projects using a combination of those. What is not eligible is essentially heat that is basically sold to district heating or using biomass or hydrogen. Also electric arc furnaces for steel making have been excluded from the call because they are covered by other funding. and also projects which entail new fossil fuel fired capacity. So these are the main activities that will not be eligible under this call. Here I can go through that very quickly, but as you know, in the call text, there's certain kind of conditions for applicants. If you see on the left, they are mainly linked to sanctions, or they could be also linked to the applicant being in financial distress or in restructuring. Also, the project's important that they have to be located in the European Economic Area. So these are like the main elements. They also need to operate for 5 years at least, so that the meaning is that they need to, I mean, you cannot apply if you only intend to have an operation for 3 years, because the subsidy is designed for a 5-year period. So that's the minimum time that your project must operate. I think the other point is that you will have to complete an Excel file, which is a mandatory document. It's called financial information file here, where you include all the important information on your project. So the topic that you select, the bid price, all the eligibility elements that are indicated, and also your financial projections. They are all in that file. So it is very important that this is filled very comprehensively, because this is going to calculate the amount of grants that you may get. So that's the key file to start with. Also, you will need to, at the moment of application, you need to provide a letter of intent for the completion guarantee. And I will mention now, just say a word on the completion guarantee. So I indicated the basics of this auction, contrary to the net zero technology call, is to make a lighter process. Okay. So in terms of the evaluation, it's more on a pass-fail for, and there are some documents you need to provide, but it's much lighter. But on the other hand, okay, the setup is that you will need to provide a completion guarantee. And if you do not meet the financial close within 2 years and entry into operation, that guarantee would be called. Now, the guarantee cannot be, because we have sometimes that question on the help desk, cannot be provided by the parent company. It has to be provided by financial institutions. The amount is 6% of the maximum grant amount, and it must be issued 2 months after, so the final completion guarantee, after you receive the invitation letter for the grant agreement signature. So these are basically the main setup. So it must be also from financial institutions located in the European Economic Area and with a minimum investment grade rating. Okay, and at the moment of application, you need to provide a letter of intent using the template that you can download on the Funding Attendance portal. Now, just to go very quickly now on the award criteria, as I mentioned, you have the admissibility and eligibility checks. And next to that, you have 2 blocks of we call that quality assessment. One is relevance, and the other one is linked to the project maturity. Okay. This is a more in-depth, if you like, evaluation. It's done internally by the senior teams. On relevance, there basically is a check to see whether the proposal is fulfilling the objectives of the call, whether the technology is eligible, whether the temperature is within the range of the topic that is selected. And after that, you have the quality assessment, which will look at technical maturity, financial maturity, and operational maturity. And there, it's based on a few documents that you need to submit. The technical maturity, we look at the technical aspects, obviously, project implementation plan and a feasibility study, looking at the risk and mitigation measure linked to this technical aspect, and also to make sure that, for example, that the electricity parameters are in line with the heat output. On the financial side, you will have to provide the main elements of your business plan, of your financing plan as well, and provide the projections in the Excel template I mentioned, the financial information file. But here you don't have to fill, like in the NZT call, a business plan template. You have to provide a narrative in the application form. Okay, and in addition to that, you need to provide a few documents in order to, which we ask in order to make sure that the project that we are selecting, we are confident that they can reach financial close within the deadlines within these 2 years. For example, so evidence of equipment procurement, evidence of the electricity sourcing, and evidence of the heat offtake. We also ask for equity funding support. So these are not legally binding commitment, but just expression of interest for the equity that will be provided. On the operational maturity, the main aim here is to check that the project team, who is going to implement the project, do they have the experience, what is their track record, and so forth. So these are the elements over there. And that's it. I will now pass it on to, I can say maybe a word on the hydrogen auction. Yeah, just to say that, so we also had another hydrogen auction. So it's the third hydrogen auction for the innovation funds. Here, the novelty, if you like, is that we introduce also electrolytic low carbon hydrogen as a product. So you see that you have three topics linked to that. So there's one where it's only for RFNBO hydrogen, green hydrogen, with a budget of 600 million euro. The second topic for 400 million euro, there can be a combination of the two. So RFNBO hydrogen and electrolytic low carbon hydrogen. What we mean here is, hydrogen that is produced out of electrolysis. Okay, but for low carbon, it doesn't have to fulfill the RFNBO conditions. Okay, so it can be supplied by electricity from that is not fully RFNBO, and no restriction on the off-takers. And then we have the third topic that is again similar to last year, focusing on the aviation and maritime off-takers. Okay, and that's also open for both RFNBO and low carbon hydrogen. So that's a bit the setup for the hydrogen auction. Also to mention, what I mentioned for the heat auction also applies to the hydrogen auction in terms of the bidding curve and the selection of projects. And now there's a final section on do not significant harm principle. I will hand over to Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandre. I know that it has been a lot of information. I hope we have not completely lost you yet. So there is only 3 more slides of this do no significant harm principle. So please bear with us. So from this year on, we need to ensure that all projects, so both under auction and regular grants, meet the do no significant harm criteria. So that is to say, we need to ensure that the Innovation Fund project do no significant harm to the 6 environmental objectives listed on the right: climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, water and marine resources, circular economy, pollution prevention and control, and biodiversity and ecosystem. So the screening must be done against the technical screening criteria listed in the Climate Delegated Regulation and the Environment Delegated Regulation, supplementing the EU Taxonomy Regulation. And here, like 2 main messages. So not all EU taxonomy obligations apply. So for instance, you don't have to demonstrate significant contribution. And second, important message is that all previously eligible sectors remain eligible to the Innovation Fund. So what is the process more concretely? So during the application process, first and foremost, you will have to make a DNSH compliance plans. And please note that additional monitoring and verification may be added during the grant agreement preparation phase. And so at the end of your operation, when the project ends, you will then have to fill in a DNSH compliance report. and how to prepare like this DNSH compliance plans during the your application. So a 3-step process. Step 1, you need to select the relevant economic activity or activities applying for your project. Step 2, you will have to find the technical screening criteria for those activities and assess the compliance and identify any necessary action. And here, I can refer to the Annex 4 of the call text, like where it's more detail how you can first select the relevant economic activities and second find this screening criteria. And step 3, final one, then you can prepare the DNSH compliance plan, and this is part of the application from Part B. And as a word of conclusion, I can encourage you to register for the 2026 Cleantech Conference on the 19th of May, 2026. This is an event that we organize with the Commission, and you can meet with other stakeholders. And lastly, if there is in the audience like anyone interested to sign up as an EU expert, CNEA is always a welcoming like application for experts.
Take that right here. Thank you to Lucy, Maria and Alexander. That was really helpful, and I'm sure you got a lot out of that. Just to remind you about the Slido, if you have any questions. Also to say, and I'm glad that we have people here today, Brian and Ian, Deloitte will be our consultancy partners this year. So if you do intend on applying for this call, please get in contact with us, and you may have an opportunity to meet with Deloitte to go over your application before you submit. For the first time as well, I'm really happy that the European Investment Bank have representatives here, and they're going to go through the project development assistance that is available now. So I'd just like to, I don't know who's going first. Luciana, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lucrezia, and I'm an associate advisor at the Innovation Fund Unit at the European Investment Bank. I'm here today with my colleague Monica, and we're going through a brief presentation of the EIB and the project development assistance. Generally, here's an overview of the EIB, which is one of the world's largest multilateral lenders and borrowers. Since the late 50s, we've invested over 1.5 trillion in more than 14,000 projects in over 160 countries. On the left-hand side of the slide, you'll see a reference of the EIB called the EU Climate Bank. This is part of a soft rebranding that reflects our increasing focus on climate and sustainability. We have the objective to invest 1 trillion in climate action and environmental sustainability between 2021 and 2030, with an interim objective to invest 50% of our financing in these areas by 2025, and we've already exceeded that. Generally, our objective is to align all financing activities to the goals of the Paris Agreement. Here's an overview of the EIB product, service, and offering. Of course, our focus is lending, which includes loans, project finance, co-financing projects, but also guarantees and equity participation. Another core area is what we call blending, so EIB financing combined with EU grants and financial instruments. And lastly, advising, which is what me and my team focus on. we support project development and increase the chances of a project to progress towards financing. In this context, so within the advisory services, we have the PDA, which falls under the umbrella of the Innovation Fund. The Innovation Fund is mandated by the PDA is mandated by the European Commission, and the objective is to improve the maturity of projects, both from a financial point of view and a technical point of view, for submission to future Innovation Fund calls or other EU funding requests. Monica is going to deep dive a bit more into this, but basically you can have access to PDA either by a simple application to the Innovation Fund website, following the eligibility criteria, which we'll go through, or if you have already applied to the Innovation Fund grant program, but you got rejected, and in that case, you'll be contacted by us if you are eligible for PDA. Overall is an advisory service, free of charge. It's conducted by my team together with other consultants, which are experts in your field. And we develop a scope of work that is tailored to your project needs. And the services that PDA offers are listed on the right-hand side of the slide, and they're pretty broad. I'll quickly go through the financial ones, and then Monica can continue with the technical ones. But we have independent reviews that go from CapEx and OpEx review, market analysis, financial modeling, which is obviously the most popular service, as most of the projects that we get are run by tech experts. So the financial modeling is definitely very useful, but also additional studies, market studies, or other financial advisory that can include business plan assessment or anything that has to do with the preparation of the investor package. That's all for me. Monica is going to deep dive a bit to the technical services and then the eligibility criteria. And we also have a couple of case studies. If you have any other questions, sorry, happy to take them afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. As my colleague mentioned, I'm going to go through the technical details of the PDA. So in this slide, you can see some examples of the technical services that you can request or that we can provide, depending on which path you are taking. So for the technical part, you can have a technology assessment. It could be a verification of technical parameters of the project. It could be about your technology. It could be about your implementation. It could be a CapEx and OpEx review. This part could be maybe to assess how your technology, how your project concept compares with other project concepts available in the market or other paths. It could be a market analysis review, again, how competitive is your project solution compared to others, or other aspects on demand or offer of your product solution, for example. And it could be also pilot project review and scale-up risk assessment. This is in the independent reviews. Just to mention also that not all of that has to be part of your PDA scope. It could be some of that, or it could be some kind of deviations from these titles, let's say. Additional studies that could be from the technical side could be a life cycle assessment, for example. Just to mention that we do not fill out, for example, your GHG emissions avoidance calculation template. This could be as a support on your assumptions, for example, but we will not be filling out your application. Also, as it has been mentioned before, you can use these studies for a reapplication, but also you can use that for implementation of your project if you are going directly to implementation, or for other national calls or other private investing. So if we go to the next one, as Lucrezia has briefly mentioned, you have two paths actually to get access to this project development assistance support. One of them will be through your application, and one of them will be through direct contact with EIB. So in this slide, you can see the first one. It will be through the application. So you submit an application for the Innovation Fund grant, and there you have to flag your interest on being contacted by EIB. So you will have to tick that, and that means that your application could be sent to the EIB from the Commission for the screening. So here we have included a very summarized timeline and the steps you have to follow. As I mentioned, you have to apply first for this path to the Innovation Fund grant, and there you have to flag your interest on the PDA. Then your application will be sent from the Commission to the EIB if it is unsuccessful, and then selected projects will be contacted by the EIB. That will be part also of our screening procedure. Then you have the opportunity also to have an open dialogue with EIB to define the PDA scope of work and the timeline. So please bear in mind also when is the application deadline, for example, if you want to reapply, or which are your objectives. And we will be defining that, and that will be included in the service agreement, that is the PDA agreement, where the contractual clauses will be included, and that defines also the relationship between EIB and you. And then finally, once this is done, you will get the PDA support. This is provided by personnel from EIB and also from external consultants. Here also I have to mention there have been some timelines that it has been included here in this slide, but this is indicative. This can change. For example, if more time, for example, is spent on the definition of the PDA scope, that will be included in the agreement, so it could be a bit longer. And similarly, for example, for the delivery of the services, depending on the task, it could be quite quick, or if your PDA scope is larger, then it will be more. So here, for example, we have included between 3 and 6 months. The average is usually 3 months, but again, if your PDA scope is larger, it could be a longer service. So for the second one, the second way to get access to the PDA support will be through direct application to EIB. So if you are interested in getting this type of support on financial or technical activities or both, you approach EIB directly. It is a requisite that you are eligible for the Innovation Fund. So you have to check that, and we will be also taking that into account in the screening. In terms of innovation, in terms of GHG emissions avoidance. And then we will be screening the projects during the whole year under EIB constraints in terms of budget and timeline. But this is a positive side of this path because it's open the whole year. So again, we have included here a guide for the steps and also in terms of the timeline. First, you have to submit your PDA request via our website. And there also there is some guide to explain you which type of information you have to include, and also which type of documents will be available or to be defined or to be discussed with the EIB. And then the request will be assessed by EIB, and EIB advisors will be discussing that PDA request with you. There is a screening also of the projects based on eligibility and also on the priorities. And again, this is subject to EIB constraints. Then once your project is screened in, we will be defining the PDA scope and also the timeline, also considering the use of your PDA again. And similarly to the previous path, we have to sign a service agreement, the PDA agreement, and you will be receiving the support from experts from EIB and also from external experts. Again, the timeline is very indicative. It could vary depending on how long we take to sign the PDA agreement, to define the PDA scope, or depending on the PDA scope, it varies also how much time we will investing on the service. So this slide is to show you summary of the projects and the regions and the sectors where the PDA support has been provided. In the previous period between 2021 and 2024, 62 projects received PDA. I have to mention in terms of the sectors, there is numbers per sector here. You can see energy storage was the highest together with the hydrogen, but it has to be considered that some projects could be falling in different sectors. So some of them could be, for example, CCS project that is applied for the cement sector. So this is included in cement, but it's a CCS project also. Or similarly, hydrogen, it could be applied to energy intensive industry. So this is a summary, but it could be falling also. Some projects could be falling in different sectors. And in terms of the countries, you can see that there is a higher number of PDAs in Spain, in Italy and France, and then other areas have received less PDA. And we will be supporting also for the geographical balance. So next slide is including we wanted to show the Innovation Fund success stories. So some projects could be reapplying and getting the grant. Some projects could be applying to different funding programs, or also has been having recognition from national programs or other kind of European programs. So to give you a bit of summary of this slide, in terms of the Innovation Fund grants, you can see some projects received the grant after receiving the PDA. And these are actually covering a wide range of sectors, cement, in the hydrogen sector, also the refinery, steel and maritime sector, and they received in the large scale and small scale. And also there are other projects that they got, they were successful in the Breakthrough Energy Catalyst, where also the EIB is involved. And other projects got recognition from national programs, like the ones you can see on the right. And this is also in alternative fuels production, hydrogen, and other areas. And then also you have here an example of a project included in the list of projects of common interest, and that also received further grants. So if we go to the next slide, this is, we wanted to show you also a specific example of PDA that was provided also in the past. This is the project CCS Prinos GR. This project is a storage site located in Greece, and the objective is also providing CO2 storage as a service, and to support also other high-emitting industries. So this falls under the category of carbon capture and storage, and this project received both financial and technical PDA. So for the financial PDA, there was support on the financial model and also advice on the capital structure. And for the technical PDA, they received support on assessment of CCS policies and regulations in Greece, and also support to assess the reuse of the water extracted from the storage site in other areas of the project. And as I mentioned before, this project was included in the list of projects of common interest, and they also received further EU grants. So a summary of the PDA, eligible projects must demonstrate high potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The objective of the PDA is to increase the project maturity, to improve the project's capacity, and also therefore to increase the probability to access to further funding, innovation fund, private financing, and other national grants. Because EIB has a strong track record in advisory, we can also tailor the needs of your project to the service. And as a takeaway also, I have mentioned the Open PDA, so you can apply through the whole year, and we will be assessing projects on an ongoing basis. Here we have also included 2 links for more information available about the Innovation Fund, and also the access for the application for OpenPDA. And with that, that's all. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move to questions now. Kieran's just going to get a few up on Slido. We can also take questions in the room. If you are going to ask questions in the room, Kieran will have a microphone. If you can just make sure to speak into that so people online can hear. No. Just to remind everyone as well, this recording will be made available as well as the slides. And if anyone has any questions or would like to meet with the National Contact Point team afterwards, you can contact us at the department. We can set up a meeting. I'm happy to discuss any application or questions you may have regarding the Innovation Fund call. Thanks. So we'll start off here. Operator of dairy plants, is it smarter to target the small scale call for renewable energy boilers rather than the heat auction given temperature limits?
I'm really sorry, but with the information available there, I don't think one can give really an answer. I would say provide a bit more of context and send it to the help desk, because I don't know. I don't dare to step on this without
more specifics. Yeah, and if that person would like to even contact us here, as I said, with more specifics, we may be able to answer. What evidence of financial maturity beyond letters of intent is most convincing to demonstrate a credible funding plan and low financial risk in an Innovation Fund application?
Yes, you hear me? Okay. I think it depends on the whole context. If, I mean, the letters of intent will be linked to the financing plan, I would say that as an evaluator, you would look at the details of the financing plan, the level of work, elaboration that has been done to identify every funding source. And for each of them, the level of engagement, the progress in negotiating terms with each of them. So I think that's very much going to be an important factor. And you can, having looked at many proposals, you can really see the ones that are, you know, a bit ahead of the other ones. So I think that will inevitably show in the application document. I think that the second step is not only when I see here letter of intent. It's not so much the nature of the document, whether it's a MOU, a letter of intent, or how is it called, but really the content. And the content is, I mean, of each letter is going to depend on the context. So let me give you an example. You are a project, and it's really project financing. So that means that the project will repay, and the project is going to raise bank debt. And so the project will repay the bank debt. So in that case, an offtake agreement is extremely important. Imagine that you're in a scenario where you have multiple off-takers possible, a lot of indication. In that case, that gives reassurance, right? Because you have a lot of flexibility. But imagine there's only one. So the project is, basically mentions that there's only one identified off-taker that will take 100% of the volumes. In that case, I would have thought that the content of the letter of intent is very much important, because it's critical to the entire business case of the project. So I believe there that you know, as a creator, I would really look at that in depth and see what the content is, at what level that letter is signed, and why, if that sign is very much detailed on the different steps to reach secure an agreement. And next to that, the other elements are the different risks to the project. So what happens if this specific offtake is not secured? Are there other alternatives? Can there be some contingent financing? So all of that, what I'm mentioning now, is to illustrate that we cannot give like a straight answer to this. It's really, I mean, experts are going, and we encourage that. Experts are going to have a holistic view on the business case, on the financing plan, and so what we encourage is to engage with all these parties and provide as much of information, identify the risk, and make sure that you find mitigation to show that you have a solid case.
2 seconds, just so people can hear.
So just to add to that particular question, for instance, one of the products that I want to put into manufacturing in Ireland is dependent on licensing of technology from somewhere else. So the letter of intent would be, at the moment, I can't afford to pay and do licensing. To create this product, the licensing would have to come alongside it, but I can't confirm or deny that until, you know, the way it's to get a license and then be able to pay it back if the grant comes through. Because at the minute, to do any form of collaborative change here, inventing, making and doing all in one space, it's very difficult, especially with everything that's going on. So using collaborative technology that's already proven and working everywhere else to apply it into something that could work in a different application. That's what I was talking. I didn't put that question, but I agree. The letter of intent for people who are willing to collaborate with this technology from abroad to make a product for Europe, from varying regions, but that ambiguity is how much can you put in a letter of intent? Are you going, you know, because you won't be able to pay for it. It won't happen unless the agreement comes through. So that ambiguity is quite tricky to know what to write and what to do. It's also quite frightening if you say the wrong thing, you put yourself in one sentence of whether or not you're going to get your grant.
Yeah, but I mean, at the moment of application, it is understood that you may not have all the terms that are completely defined. I mean, that's very much understood. Your application stage, and you have a period to reach the financial close. So there, it's also, I mean, just to give one aspect, how you define your target financial close. How do you
So I totally understand. It was literally just to define that that's actually something that you would understand for bringing manufacturing somewhere. We don't have everything we need in one place. Yeah. So to allocate technology to come from other places to make a thing, that stress and worry that if you don't have the whole package in one place, it's quite hard to understand how to move forward. I appreciate the answer though. You've answered it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question here on the heat auction, then we'll go to one on the PDA. Heat auction, will it support a company in providing heat as a service to large heat users, or must the heat user make the application directly?
Again, here it is very difficult because we lack context. So who is, I mean, I don't know if the company which is going to produce heat as a service is the one that owns as well the system which is being decarbonized. So you want to take it? I'll pass it.
If I understand the question correctly, because when I read heat as a service, so you possibly mean about the contractual nature here, and I mean for that, yeah.
Directing it to other people. The issue we have in Ireland is that provider collaboration distance.
Yeah.
Person wants to know is I apply for it. You see why this is a great thing for us. Never had a
no, but I see now. I've also seen questions like that on the help desk. But we have quite a lot of flexibility in the way projects are organized, in the way they set up the contractual framework. We don't have like very limiting restrictions on that. That's really up to the project. The only thing, because that's what we say also in our response, there must be, I mean, here we are supporting new heat investments. So one of the parties signing the grant agreement must invest in new heat installation. So there must be a capex and investment into that. But otherwise, the different partners, how they're organized, whether it's a heat as a service or whether it's a heat sold, as an offtake. Yeah, but from what you indicate, it seems that it's about how the structure will be set up.
I see Thomas online. I don't know if he wants to jump in here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we was just a question like, is it specifically the user of the heat, or can a third party make that capital investment, put in the electric boilers or thermal storage, and displace the fossil fuel on a large energy user site? So who has to put in the application?
We need to have the entity. So it can be the user as well, but you must have the entity that is basically adding the capacity, the heat capacity, that is making the investment in the heat pump, in the electric boiler. So that party needs to be in the grant agreement. Now, otherwise, other entities can be also in the grant agreement. They can organize themselves, if you like, the way they want, with different contractual setup. Really explain well how this works, but that's the only requirement.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll just so I sort of cover multiple of sort of topics. Well, there's a question here on the PDA. So does the EIB PDA program support pilot scale projects?
Yes, for the pilot scale projects, yes, we support the large scale, medium, small, and pilots, and there is not any limitation on that as far as it was included in the call.
Thank you. From Bernice here, if a project produces, stores and uses green hydrogen in a closed loop PP application as energy storage, can it apply for the large scale instead of the hydrogen auction?
I'm sorry, but I am unable to give an answer, so I would suggest to send it to the help desk.
Yes, the help desk, you can find the help desk online, or if you have any issues, you can contact us here at the national contact point. Yeah, 2 seconds.
Hi there, hello. Maybe just a clarification on the first question, the dairy industry. Could I just confirm the minimum limit or temperature level for the heat auction? I believe it's 100 degrees because the dairy sector would rely on hot water for pasteurization at say 70 degrees temperature. And I guess my question is space heating or hot water generation applicable in the heat auction?
Again, could you mention the level of the temperature?
The temperature, I believe the limit is 100 degrees on the heat auction.
Yeah.
So something like pasteurization typically happens at 70 degrees. Is that possible? Is that it's not applicable then?
I mean, in principle, I mean, to apply the minimum level is 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So that I would say that would seem not, but please have a look maybe also the way it is measured, the indication provided in the application documents. Because
Thank you so much.
Any other questions in the room before we go back? Okay. Another one here for the EIB. When will projects from the 2023 Innovation Fund call put forward? Oh, that's just sorry, it just skipped ahead of me there. For PDA assessment here from the EIB if they have been successful.
So for the projects from the 2023 call, if they have been successful on the EIB screening for the PDA, I believe they have been mostly contacted. Maybe there is some that is still to be contacted. So in case of any doubt, I will suggest also to contact the EIB. So yeah, that's the answer.
Thank you. Sorry. Just seeing some of these have already been covered. In pilot projects, what is the TRL level, meaning of not yet reached large scale? Yeah. I think Tony's trying to ask there what TRL level is considered for the pilot project.
To my knowledge, there is no indication on TRL level required. But you may ask the help desk, but I don't think there is a requirement there.
And
large scale to me is very nebulous.
In the heat auction, are you referring to? Okay. All right. So in connection with the NZT call, there is no, to my knowledge, there is a minimum requirement on capex as for the other calls, but you may there is no upper limit. We have sometimes large projects that apply to the pilot topic. Yeah.
Exactly.
The only requirement there is the maximum amount of grant that we can provide to pilots. That's the.
Basically, I mean, I tried to make it clear when I presented before, but I mean, we found out that really there were projects that were coming in as pilot being false pilots. So the way we managed to try really to encourage and to protect, if you want, the area for the pilots, the real pilots, was to say, okay, we limit the maximum capex for a pilot, and then we may succeed on getting the real pilot. So the window which is for them, and not a large scale that comes and dresses as a pilot, not really being a pilot, because and okay, they go through the evaluation. So it was a way really to try to make a window which addresses the targets. So that was the intention of introducing this new requirement.
I'll answer this last question and then we'll go for lunch. We'll try and get back to everyone that has put something in, but Anna Hill has asked, are small EU consortiums encouraged for pilot projects to boost EU competitiveness and industrial leadership? There's nothing mandatory in the Innovation Fund that you have to be part of a consortium or not. So you don't need to be. It's more about showing replicability across Europe. So you can apply by yourself, which is certainly in Ireland is the most common method. You don't get this consortiums like you'd find in the likes of the LIFE project and Horizon, where sometimes they're necessary. So there's no need for a consortium. Also, there's no barriers from you applying as one. Obviously, we've run out of time. Oh, sorry. Yes, Maria, go ahead.
I'm talking just from my memory, but I think 80% of our grants are mono-beneficiary.
Yeah.
So I think this says something about, you decide what's your project.
Yeah, perfect. Again, I'd like to thank everyone who travelled over from Brussels today to be with us and given up their time. I've found it very beneficial. We will try and get back to the questions. There's a number there that we can answer ourselves as the NCP. If anyone has any questions, you can contact us at innovationfund@dcee.gov.ie. We're happy to talk to anyone about their potential projects and get clarifications. There's also the help desk, and I would advise you, if you have questions for the help desk, give as much information as possible and sooner rather than later. As you can imagine, they get very busy coming up towards the closing. Everyone online, thank you very much for joining us, and everyone in the room, you're more than welcome to stay for lunch to network, and please come up and talk to us if you've any questions. Thank you.